Hi there. Well, today I'm going to be recording a demo tutorial of my solo AI decks. While these AI decks aren't what I would call totally finished, they're still in need of some testing. I think the general mechanics, however, are pretty much set. And so in this way, I can help people try it out and help me tweak anything necessary. These cars you see here are cars that I got at Shapeways, and while they're not perfect, I think they look pretty fun. It took me hours and hours of painting this, something I'd never done before, and I'm kind of proud to show them a little bit here, and hopefully they'll make the video more bearable to watch. I'll place a link below this video or in the video description that will link you to the file section of Thunder Alley, where you can download the latest version of this AI deck I'm putting together. But as you can see here, each team, I will be racing with 7 teams, and each one has an individual deck. I'll be using the red race car team. So the first team up is black, and so let's see what card they draw. Alright, so the first card I drew is a 4 movement solo card, which tells us to activate the furthest car behind. So let's see which car that would be. Looks like that is car number 19. So it's the beginning of the race, and obviously we look at the first thing that pops up, which is cross the finish line. Clearly, like I said, it's the beginning of the race, so it's not going to happen. We skip that. And the first condition is the car is not linked. Once again, it's the beginning of the race, and of course they are all linked so far, so we skip that and move on to linked, which is the one movement we will activate then. It says move 1 space to outside and move forward. Lateral movement is free even if entering a space requires displacing a car. So he's going to move forward, but he's going to move to the outside first. So he's going to push this car off to the side as he moves to the outside, which incidentally links him up with his other team car. And now he's going to move his 4 solo, because the displacement to the outside was free according to the card. So in this case, it costs 3 points, movement points, to push forward during a solo. So that's really only going to give us 1 movement. Now, of course, you may be thinking, well, yeah, that's not the best move for the AI probably at this point. However, it is what has come up, and there may be situations in the game where these kind of moves you might think are not ideal or maybe suboptimal, but keep in mind, cars don't take wear tokens, and this is one of the reasons why, that sometimes, you know, the behavior might not be optimal. I tried to make the difficulty compensate for these situations that are least favorable or less favorable for the AI. So here we go, we're going to move all cars 1 space. So he becomes the current leader. Alright, and because we're using the cars, I'm just going to place the regular token underneath, and now we know that that car has been activated. So the next team in line is purple, and I draw a 4 movement draft card, which says to activate the furthest behind. So obviously cross the finish line is not the case. We're going to skip that. Not linked. Well, let's see if the car is linked. It probably is, because it is the beginning of the race, but let's have a look. As we can see, the furthest behind looks to be number 10, and it is linked with the pink car ahead of it. Therefore, the not linked condition doesn't apply. Now, only linked with opponents, that is the case, because as we saw, it's only linked with the pink car. So this is the movement that, or the condition that we will follow. So it says to move laterally to link with team cars. Otherwise, move one space to inside, then forward. So the first thing it says is to move ladder to link with team cars. Now if it does move to the outside or to the inside, it won't actually link up with any cars. So we look at the otherwise, which says move one space to inside, then forward. So that's what we're going to do. And by doing that, we displace this car and this car. So he moves to the inside. That costs 2 movement points, and now we have a draft for 4 movement. Now, in this case, the draft line has a choice right away, and the first option always is to go to an empty draft or empty track, unless it would connect with your own team cars. In this case, if they do move here, they will be connecting with this car. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So there's 2 movement there, a 1, move that along, and I'm going to add this here before we forget. So we know he's been activated, and that was 2 movement to the inside to displace, 1 here, and there's 1 more draft point left, so this whole line is going to draft. And 71 regains the lead. So there we go. Alright, so far it looks like number 24 has been pushed to the outside already, so we'll see what happens to him. So now we're looking at Pink's turn, and the card that's drawn is a 5 lead movement, and it says to activate the car that's linked with most team cars behind it. Otherwise, you activate the furthest ahead. So when we look at the Pink team, we have 23 in a draft line, and we have 26 in the other draft line, and then we have 56 all alone by himself there. So actually, none of them have other cars behind them. So we activate the furthest ahead, which is, in this case, 23. So we look at the conditions. Across the finish line is not, once again, I think I mentioned it for the last time, but at this point it's not relevant. So we look at not linked, and we did look at 23, which is linked up ahead. So the linked movement, it says move as many vacant forward or lateral spaces as possible, then continue moving forward. Let's move him 5. So he's going to try to move as many as possible. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, we could have moved him in here to get in front of the draft line. However, we always try to move so it ends up furthest ahead possible, which would mean going in a straight line in this case. So we have to drag the rest of the cars. Let's activate that car and give him the current turn leader. And let's drag the other cars. So this is what the turns starting to develop. As you can see, there's some cars. The blue team actually is getting kind of cut off from the draft lines. So we draw a 5 draft movement card for green, which activates the furthest car ahead. So the furthest car ahead here is 40, which is on the inside track there. And we'll just verify now that he is linked. As we looked, first condition doesn't apply. And then it says only linked with opponents. And it's not the case. He actually is linked with one of the green cars in the back. So, linked with team, you just move forward. So that's a 5 draft forward. Okay, so let's move this whole line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 71 takes the lead again. Alright. Let's move in 40, which is the activated car. Alright. And you can see back here My 42 is being left in the dust, as is 56 and 24. So that early movement by black really hampered number 24 there. And that early movement also really is going to make my number 42 have a struggle for most of the game, I assume. A 7 lead movement card for the yellow team as their first movement, and we're going to be activating the car that's linked with most team cars behind it, otherwise the furthest ahead. So as we can see, 43 is linked with a car behind it, so that is the car we'll be activating. Clearly the not linked option doesn't count or can't be applied. Then we have the linked option, which says move as many vacant forward or lateral spaces as possible, then continue moving forward. So clearly we try to maximize the furthest it'll go, so we'll move to the inside. So here comes 43, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and suddenly 43 has really moved into the lead there. Let's activate him. Made a big move, and luckily he'll be drafting one of my own cars. Alright, let's bring all these cars in. Well, a lot of cars being drafted here. And the yellow car. Oh, I'm sorry. So it actually should go all the way over here. So here's the new draft line after 43 ended his movement. As you can see back here, actually his friend didn't end up here because as per the rules in movement, he actually ended up behind 40, and that's the end of the movement. So yeah, he ended up in a different draft line. So this is the card I've decided to play, a pursuit movement, which I'll show you in a second. The other two cards I actually had as options were two draft cards. One that didn't give me anywhere for riding the draft, and the other one was a chasing the race. However, both cards wouldn't allow lateral movement, which is kind of why I decided against them. And my last card, or the other card I had that I did not choose, was a solo movement. And I could have, it was only a 6 movement, so my 42 in the back, I mean, I could have brought him up. He wouldn't have caught up with the draft line, so I'm not sure how useful it would have been. I decided with this movement, this pursuit, that I'm going to try to connect my second card to the number 77 all the way up to the main draft line, so that he doesn't get left behind like 42. So number 77 is the card I decided to activate with the pursuit. So the pursuit is 5 movement, but what I'm going to try to do really is move to connect the other lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, starting a pursuit, which will give me my 5th movement as connected to the main draft line. So the 5th movement will push 43 up further ahead, my 69, and the rest of the line to follow along. So, you know, I'm not sure it's the best move, but I like it because number 77 becomes part of the main draft line that's developing. We'll see, obviously, how this pans out for me. Okay, so the last team to activate their first car is blue, and we pull a 7 lead movement card. So we're going to activate the car that's linked with most team cars behind it, or the furthest ahead. As you can see, blue's cars are already pretty much very spread apart, and neither of them is connected to each other. So we're going to activate the car that's furthest behind, which is number 24 there. So car 24 isn't connected to anybody, so we look at not linked. That's the first condition that applies. And it says move as many vacant forward or lateral spaces as possible, then continue moving forward. So nothing special there, but he's going to have 7 full movement. So let's move 24 7 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, place him furthest along the track possible. Here are the cars after at least one car from each team has been activated. However, you'll notice I actually adjusted two mistakes I made, which was my 42 wasn't left behind. He actually should have been part of that first main draft, and I verified, and actually I put him right behind yellow 16, and it wouldn't have had any effect. It would have had an effect on my decision making, but it's not a big deal. I'm just trying to demonstrate how this would work. So I'm just going to put him in his proper place. And also the two black cars, when they were taking the lead, I initially placed them behind the green car number 7, but however they were switching lanes, so they should have been in the middle lane. They wouldn't have actually switched, which would have connected them with number 17.